This video was brought to you by Brilliant. The Schengen area is perhaps the European Union's greatest achievement. It's a border-free area comprising 29 European countries, allowing for the free movement of hundreds of millions of citizens and the effective functioning of a single market. However, this spirit of solidarity has come under threat recently. Member states are currently re-establishing border controls due to anxiety about immigration and security threats, with Germany becoming the latest to do so. And some MEPs are even trying to expel member states with unpalatable migration regimes, especially Hungary. So in this video, we'll explain what's going on with the Schengen area, why it doesn't seem to be working anymore, and what might happen next. Before we start, if you're interested in global alliances and groupings like Schengen, then you might like our brand new poster, Every Alliance Explains, which shows, in slightly confusing detail, how every country interacts with each other. It's available by clicking the link in the description, and for a limited time, you can get 20% off with code Schengen. To begin with, it's probably worth explaining a little more about what the Schengen area is, and where it came from. The principle of free movement has long been key to the European project, with the 1957 Treaty of Rome containing provisions on free movement between member countries. At the time, these applied to working Europeans, and gave them the freedom to settle and work in any member state, but fell short of dismantling border controls between countries. Then, in 1985, a breakthrough agreement between 5 of the 10 EEC member states was signed near a Luxembourg village called Schengen, proposing the gradual abolition of checks at their common borders. A supplementary convention signed in 1990 proposed the complete abolition of internal border controls and the establishment of a common visa policy. This agreement entered into force in 1995 and was incorporated into EU law by the Treaty of Amsterdam in 1999. Nowadays, the Schengen area encompasses the entire EU except for Cyprus and Ireland, which has an opt-out. But it also includes 4 non-EU member states: Iceland, Norway, Switzerland, and Liechtenstein. Plus, there's also Monaco, San Marino, and the Vatican City, microstates that aren't Schengen members but effectively operate as if they are. Under EU law, Schengen member states are allowed to temporarily reintroduce border controls in the event of a serious threat to public policy or internal security, provided it is a last resort measure and an exceptional situation. Now, at first, temporary controls in response to specific challenges may not seem like that big of a deal, but in a significant number of cases, these controls are becoming the new normal, undermining the Schengen area. 6 countries in particular have been effectively continually extending these temporary measures since around 2015. These temporary restrictions have also become increasingly popular. At the time of writing, border controls have been temporarily reintroduced in Austria, Denmark, France, Italy, Norway, Slovenia, Sweden, and perhaps most notably, Germany, which imposed some new restrictions earlier this week. So why is Schengen coming under strain? Well, as we see it, there are at least 3 reasons: migration, crime, and Hungary's new guest worker program for Russians and Belarusians. Let's start with immigration though. Now, to be clear, we're not saying that high levels of immigration are bad, but it's just a fact that many European governments have reacted to high migration levels by reimposing national borders. The most recent instance of this came earlier this week, when German Chancellor Olaf Scholz made headlines by announcing plans to impose tighter land border controls on the country's borders with Poland, Czechia, Switzerland, and Austria. While this was nominally a response to a terror attack in August claimed by the Islamic State, it's also at least tacitly a reaction to rising migrant skeptic sentiment in Germany. This month, the Alternative for Germany, or AfD party, who are probably the most migrant skeptic party in Germany, having previously advocated for a net zero migration policy and a massive increase in deportations, won elections in the eastern state of Thuringia, and just missed out on victory in Saxony too. The other 2 parties who performed well in those elections, the Sarah Wagenknecht Alliance and the Christian Democrats, are also relatively migrant skeptic. The Christian Democrats leader, for instance, has come out against accepting any more Syrian or Afghan refugees, and suggested that Germany should copy the UK's Rwanda scheme, while Sarah Wagenknecht has emerged as a vocal opponent to Germany's Merkel-era refugee policy, claiming that new arrivals are draining the welfare state. Because of the role that Germany has historically played in absorbing European migrants, and because of its geographic centrality, Scholz's decision will put more strain on Schengen. Austria has already said that it will refuse to take back any migrants refused at the German border, while the Polish Prime Minister called Berlin's decision unacceptable and demanded urgent consultations. A spokesperson for the Czech Ministry of Interior warned that Germany's border control extensions would also have a domino effect on Czechs throughout Schengen, presumably referring to the fact that if Austria refuses to accept refugees turned away at the German border, Germany's other neighbours, including Czechia, Slovakia, Hungary, Slovenia, Switzerland, Croatia, and maybe even France, will probably do the same, paving the way for a total collapse of Schengen. Anyway, the second strain on Schengen is crime. An increasing number of states have already reimposed border restrictions over the past few years due to escalating concerns regarding organised cross-border crime, with the most recent tension coming in the Nordic countries. According to the Danish Justice Minister, criminal groups have hired teenagers from Sweden to commit crimes on Danish territory in some 25 occasions in the last 4 months. In response, the Danish government have started talking about closing the Denmark-Sweden border, where the main border crossing is the Øresund Bridge, which has been open since 2001. It's a similar story in Norway too, where the government recently discovered Swedish gangs operating in every region. Shutting the borders wouldn't be entirely unprecedented either. Something similar happened in 2019 when Denmark imposed temporary border controls after 2 Swedish nationals set off a bomb outside the Danish tax agency. Finally, the last strain worth mentioning is Hungary's new national card program, which offers a 2-year residence permit to individuals from specific countries who work in Hungary, and was recently extended to Russians and Belarusians. Unsurprisingly, this hasn't gone down well with the rest of Europe, who argue that it could provide a loophole for Russian spies. On top of this, Hungary signalled last week that it is serious about giving its unwanted immigrants free one-way travel to Brussels, a measure meant to pressure the European Commission into dropping heavy fines imposed on Budapest over its restrictive asylum policies. Because of these recent actions, MEPs have urged the European Commission to introduce new border controls at Hungary's borders, or even to expel Hungary from the Schengen zone altogether. Ultimately, these challenges represent a growing sense among European countries that the EU's approach to free movement and migration isn't working as desired, and Schengen's future ultimately depends on an effective reform of the EU's wider migration policy. With issues like these, it's often hard to come to the right conclusions. So if you want to improve your decision making, you'll want to check out Brilliant. Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI. For instance, there's the Scientific Thinking course, which takes you on an interactive tour of our physical world. You'll engage with key scientific principles and theories, from simple machines like gears and pulleys to Einstein's special theory of relativity. It's not just a bunch of lectures either. You'll learn by doing, with hands-on lessons that will have you comparing circuits to understand voltage and current, playing snooker to learn the rules of collision, planning your itinerary for an intergalactic music festival on a space-time diagram, and more. That way, you'll build your natural intuition while gaining deep knowledge of scientific principles. Find out more and try everything Brilliant has to offer for a full 30 days by visiting brilliant.org/TLDR or by clicking the link in the description. That way, you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks for your support, and thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video.